Hello and welcome, I'm Raziel, and so, this is something that needs to be talked about. It's the Force Organisation chart for Horus Heresy 3. Now, we know it looks like a convoluted mess, and yes, it's a convoluted mess. However, the rules around it make it so much worse. Right. First, you get your Crusade Primary Detachment. This is your High Command, your three command choices, 4 troop choices, right? And your 4 transports. 2 of them have prime advantages, which is a 1 command and 1 troops. No, the High Command, the big boss doesn't get a prime advantage, but he gets to use apex detachments. However, this is one of the things that I find weird. There is a prime advantage where you can change a command into a High Command, but you don't get the apex detachment. Yeah, you get to add a more powerful character, but you lose a selection of detachments. Anyway, then you can use your additional detachments. These are your Warlord detachment, which is your Primarch or Warlord, your Retinue, and Heavy Transport. You've got Lords of War detachment, which is 2 Lords of War, and an Allied detachment, 2 command, 4 troops. Okay? So that's what you can have in your army with no significant extra rules. However, for some reason, if you want to add dreadnoughts, tanks, terminators, javelins, land speeders, sky hunters, outriders, you're going to have a command choice or a high command choice. You're going to have to do that. So you can add a Lord of War, like a knight, or a Foulblade. Fair enough. That's an additional detachment you can add, but you cannot add terminators or tanks unless you have a command unit, right? And it doesn't even get better from there. It gets worse, because if you look at it, the Armored Fist is for normal transports, for heavy transports. Tactical support is 2 troops, 2 support. Armored support is for tanks, armor. Heavy support is a war engine, basically your dreadnought. By the way, just in case you're wondering, I did look this up. Technically, the army or armies in the Saturnine bogs are illegal because you only have 2 command units, and you've got a dreadnought, terminators, and the gun thing. I can't remember what it is, but yeah. So you can't even use that as a full army unless you give either one command or one of the troops the logistical benefit prime advantage. Yes, that means if you want to add an extra detachment, you have to go and add a prime advantage to it. So there. But if you want to add anything like veterans, you're going to need a high command. Yes, for a veteran, you need high command. If you're using Ultramarines and you want it victorious, you need a high command. You cannot add those units with normal command choices. You just can't do it. It's not with the rules. You can't do it. See, it doesn't get better. And the more I look into this, the worse it gets. Okay? Some, like Iron Hands, honestly, if you want a nice varied army, I'd pick Iron Hands. Have an Iron Father, you get extra detachment for your Castellax, and you can have the Apex as well, which allows a command, a dreadnought, terminators, and support, right? And that's good. See, the fact is, you shouldn't have to do that. That just seems silly to have that one available just to Iron Hands. And that's not. And then you can add an extra dreadnought. You can have an extra detachment for a dreadnought, and it doesn't use anything up if you use the Iron Hands prime advantage for one of your units. Okay? And it seems like they're trying to fix this Force Organisation chart with believers. And that shouldn't be the way. And it only seems to work with a couple in the loyalist ones, because most of the loyalists, except the Iron Hands, in particular seems to have the one where you can have most variation in your army. Actually have choice. And yeah. But this is the other thing. I said in the Liber book, like when I was doing a quick view of the Liber Cristeris, you can have 4 armigers per knight. That's good. I like that. The heavy support for the normal force organization is 1 war engine, so 1 dreadnought for your space marine. Yeah, it's just 1. You can't have 3 in a unit. They are no longer dreadnought talents. They've been removed. So I can have 4 armigers for 1 knight, or 1 dreadnought for 1 command unit, or 1, or 1 of the troop choices, right? Sorry, or the high command, I should say. I do apologize. Which again completely stymies your army, and like I said, this makes the box technically an illegal army. You cannot use that as an entire army. You're going to have to drop something from it to make the Saturnine box legal. Either the Dreadnought, the Terminators, or the gun thing. And that's the other thing. Dreadnoughts are the only one which has 1 option. So, yeah, think about that for Solo Auxilia. I haven't read it yet. You might actually have some changes. If you want 2 Sentinels, which would be 2 war engines, by the way, you're going to need to use 2 command choices just to use a squad of light Sentinels or 1 heavy Sentinel. That means you can't use your tanks on top unless you have more command choices. But you say there's no compulsory units. No, there's no compulsory units. You don't have to take them. No, you don't. But if you want to take anything else, you have to take them. If you want to use your elites, you have been victorious, your veterans, you're going to need a high command unit. Do you see what the problem with this is? And the odd thing is, and I'm trying to work this out, warlords, don't allow you to add any extra detachments. So if you add your Primarch, which is your warlord, by the way, you can't add an extra detachment for your Primarch. The one dude who can control the whole army has less power or ranking than, a praetor or chaplain, because they can actually add a detachment with them. Whereas your Primarch can't. I'm trying to make sense of this. I really am. And it just seems to be this weird thing that they say that they don't want you to, right at the start. It says this is to be more, no compulsory slots, no vehicle squadrons. And you can tailor your list to include more armor or war engine slots. That's not what works. No, right. This is literally what it says. No vehicle squadrons or dreadnought talents. Each dreadnought or vehicle unit now consists of a single model, but it is now easier to tailor your list to include more armor or war engine slots. No, it doesn't. It stymies you. You can now not take 3 dreadnoughts. Then you have, no dedicated transports. Yes, if you want to take transports, such as heavy transports, you have to use up one of your auxiliary detachments. To do that, if you want to use your land rated Spartan, right, you have to use up a detachment slot. You have to do it. You do not have an option of just adding that in to your army, which would make a lot of sense. But they've taken that away. Retinues are now a separate unit. That's right. What you used to add to your, your Praetor, your Primarch, or anything like that, is now its own slot. Oh, and if you don't want to put it in a warlord detachment, so if you want more than 1, you're going to have to use your Apex detachment for your high command to use that. Again, this doesn't make sense. Why would anyone go, yes, retinues, those are very important, and people like using them and adding them to their command where they make sense to be, but we'll just make sure that they have to use up a force organization slot just so they can use it. Oh, by the way, if you want to use it in a warlord detachment, your army has to be 3,000 points. Okay? Now, I'm just saying, that's exactly what you have to do. If you want to use your command squad, your army has to be 3,000 points. You don't have a choice in that matter. Again, this is just weird. It's a weird thing to say. Like, if they just said, right, they could fix this with one paragraph at most, right? You can use everything on the force organization chart once. However, if you have more than one command or high command, you can take extra auxiliary or additional attachments, right? You can take more if you have a... But no, if you want to use your tanks, if you want to use your Kratos, your Sicarians, your Predators, whatever, you have to have at least one command unit. If you want to use your Invictarius, your Veterans, you have to have one high command unit to do that. Okay? If you want to use an officer cadre, so if you want two more, which, yeah, okay, I can actually see the point of this, so you can have two more auxiliary detachments, you have to use up a slot. Do you see, right, this is just one of the things that are very broken in this game. And this is one of the basic things they are. And here we go. Space Marine Praetor, so they actually have the armies, like the armies that you can use. And yeah, this is just one of those books where the more you look at it, the less it makes sense. I like a nice diverse army. I like my believe it or not, my Ultramarine army is the only legal army I have. I'm not even joking. I have a Praetor, so I can have my Victorious. I have 4 warlord choices, 4 command choices, and that's including the Praetor as a high command. And I can use my tanks, my Invictarius, my Outriders, and my Terminators, right? I can have 2 squads of Terminators for the Shock Assault. Okay, that's fine. I can have 4 tanks. So it's easier to take 4 tanks than it is for you to take 4 squads of Terminators. It's easier for you to take a Knight than it is for you to take your Veterans. And like I said, the Iron Hands, I'm quite glad I went Iron Hands. By the way, I had no idea of the rules prior to going in. I chose Iron Hands because I wanted to do a fluffy tank army, but now it's more of a fluffy walker army, which it actually allows. It allows that. You can take more dreadnoughts in an Iron Hands army than you can in most other armies. You get 1 free slot with a prime advantage. You've got the Apex as well, which allows it, and you can have a Castle Axe with your Iron Father. Right? And you can take dreadnoughts too. But it shouldn't need a Liber to fix problems in the rulebook. It shouldn't take an extra book to say, yeah, oh, by the way, this is how Space Marines work, and this will fix a lot of the problems. But it doesn't fix many of the problems. That's the other thing. Most of them only have a auxiliary detachment. And most of them, like Ultramarines, is command, support, 2 troops, and a fast stack. Okay, that's fine. Iron Hands has the best with 2. It has an Apex, which is the one I'll be using, and Spearhead, which is heavy transport. It's good because I've got a Spartan on them. An extra tank and an extra Terminators, which is only have 1 squad of Terminators anyway. Okay. So yeah, just using those 2, I can use more of my army, and that's Iron Hands. Blood Angels isn't actually, but I think Blood Angels is one of the worst if you were trying to do a fluffy army. Yeah, you can have 2 elites and 2 troops, and that would be your, that would be your Crimson Paladins and your Dawnbreaker cohort. Imperial Fist, again, although I don't like Imperial Fist, you can have 2 troops, Terminators, and support. So yeah, the thing is, you shouldn't need the Liber book to fix this. If you do Space Wolves, you can have 2 troop choices and 2 Terminator choices as an auxiliary detachment. That's actually pretty good. I like that. And it's the way it should have been at the start. Not have, your Liber Astartes fix it. And let me have a look at Salamanders, because that's the one they put on the box. You support and a tank. So still, if you're using Iron Hands, the Saturnine box is still not. It's broken. You cannot use it. And right, Aurora for a Raven Guard is 2 elites and 2 recon. Again, it makes sense for them. But at least you can use 2 different types of unit in a sickle detachment, which is a way it should have been at the very least. Not stymieing you into the single unit per detachment. Or we could have just said, right, to start your army, you can use any detachment in your force organization, as long as you have a primary detachment. You don't need to have a high command. You don't need to have a command unit to use your tanks, to use your Terminators, to use anything else. That shouldn't have been an option. If you wanted additional units or force organization, that is what it should say. Now you can have 1 more. It just says 1, by the way, and it says it in 3 paragraphs. There's 3 different times where it says, yes, you can only have 1 auxiliary detachment. You can only have 1 apex detachment if you have a high command. Okay? It's just, no, it's something that's broken from the start. It needs downright taken back to the drawing board and redone. Honestly, if you're playing a friendly game like I do, I play lots of friendly games. I don't play many. I don't do tournaments or anything like that. I'm just going to say, dude, I want to play a favorite game of Horus Heresy, but goddamn, I'm not using this new force organization chart. I'm using the old one. I'm going to use the old one. I am. I'm not going to use the new one. Because the new one is broken. It's not worth it. Anyway, sorry, this is a bit more rambly. I do apologize. Oh, this is a long video. I do apologize for my long video today. And this was only meant to be a quick one as well. But there is a Liber Astartes quick look to later. But I wanted to get this off my chest first and make sure people are well in the clear on how broken the Force Organization chart is. Anyway, thank you very much for watching. Have a great day. I'll see you all again soon. If you wish to save money on your wargaming, or if you want to try something new, which is what I would highly suggest right now, try Whaling Games down below, up to 20% off, and free delivery off to £20. They're actually one of the cheaper ones, by the way. There's also Football Planet for comics, DVDs, mangas. There's my merchandise for my comics. If you want to support me personally, I spend a lot of time on them. They're fun to read. There's also t-shirts, cups, etc. And there's Skyforge, a good friend of mine. Let's get him up the Google algorithm. And finally, Patreon, because business. Bye-bye.